Good evening, good people. This is your host, Calvin Anderson, with the Check In With podcast. Today, we have another amazing guest with us today. My guest today is a creative counselor and psychotherapist based in Manchester. She works as a counselor for a mental health organization dedicated to supporting children and young people. My guest has expanded her practice by establishing a private practice where she provides therapy for adults from all walks of life. Ladies and gentlemen, give a warm welcome to Alice Spencer. Alice, how are you?
Hi, I'm really good, thank you. And yeah, really looking forward to getting to talk with you.
No, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast. It is such an honor to host you, and I know this won't be the first or last time that the listeners hear you. Alice, I want to go into something that we spoke about in our last conversation. Being a Black therapist, please unpack that for me and for the listeners and talk to us about your experience and talk to us about your journey.
Yeah, so I guess I'll start off with my training. So I qualified in 2020, so it was during COVID,
Mhm.
but it's been a long journey and I started training, I think it was 2017. I remember, I guess, being quite surprised because the majority of the cohort was white. I remember specifically there was four of us who were non-white, and we kind of almost we connected instantly, and I guess kind of formed like a supportive group. I guess because there's that connection there and the understanding there, especially as we're going through the training together, we can check in with each other, and there was that safety there. Although I connected really well with my white peers, that wasn't an issue for me, but I was really surprised by the lack of diversity, not just amongst us, but amongst our tutors. When I was training again, there was only one Asian tutor and everyone else was white. So again, it's the things that you're being taught about or the way that maybe the tutors connect with you or talk to you might be different. And also even the modules that we studied. So we didn't actually have, I didn't do any training on race, identity, culture. We never spoke about how race and culture can come into the therapy room.
Yeah.
It wasn't even touched upon. And now as a qualified counsellor, I can, I see that as a huge issue and actually find it really disappointing that that was never discussed. So that was kind of my introduction to the therapy world. And then now I work, like I said, part-time for an organization, which is actually, it is very diverse. It wasn't when I started, but it is now. And I also work part-time private. I guess in the organization, that feels good because the management, my colleagues, there's a lot of diversity, black and brown people. And I feel like, again, we've kind of created this really supportive group. I think it's really important to have that, especially in supervision or just times where you can pull a colleague aside and have a chat if something didn't feel right or something felt off. It's so important to have that. So that feels really supportive. But it's definitely had its challenges.
Alice, thank you so much for sharing that with us and your experience and your journey. I wanted to even ask you, had you have gotten the support, the acknowledgement in terms of, okay, Alice, you are a Black therapist, you are probably the only Black therapist in this group, or had this kind of talk about the diversity within the field from early or from the beginning of your training, what would that have done for you had that been addressed early?
I think it would have made me feel supported and seen. It would have made me feel validated and also prepared that I was going into a career that's mostly dominated by, especially, I'd say, white middle class women. Because again, I think men were a minority on our course. I guess it would have prepared me for being in in more white spaces professionally, which I wasn't used to. And I think just being recognized, right, especially in a learning space, for that to be acknowledged and recognized is just so important. And also, seeing that that was taught to other white trainee counselors, about, I guess, how they need to be aware of how race and culture can play a big part in the therapy. So that, so then I felt reassured that there was going to be these, white counselors who were clued up and who were prepared to work with black and brown people. Because especially even myself, looking for a therapist, when you're training, you have to have a therapist.
Yeah.
And you want to be reassured that if you're going to have a white therapist, because again, there's not very many black or brown therapists out there, that they're going to understand you, that they're going to get you, that they have this training. But I didn't have that assurance. So that was difficult. I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that answers it how you wanted to answer it. And I can hear in your voice, the slight disappointment that you had. And there's one word that you said is being prepared, that you would have been prepared even more to go into the field and be able to navigate in a certain way that was, or that is, beneficial for you. Do you still keep in touch with, you know, people from your class or lecturers, or have you just completely just gone off and done your own thing?
No, I am still in contact. I've got a couple of friends off the course, and all that's been a godsend because going out into the world of work after qualifying is so scary. It's huge, and you realize that you don't know anything at all. So having that support has been huge. And even as I've moved into private practice, it's been really nice because we kind of have like that peer supervision for each other. But also, if my friend's got a client that she can no longer see and they want a black therapist, she might recommend me. There's that. It just feels really supportive of each other. I haven't spoken to like any of the lecturers, but I did have one lecturer. He's passed away now, but I felt he really saw me. He really listened to me. He really valued me, and that really important. I felt like he was rooting for me, and when I classed, he sent me an email just saying how proud he was and how well he thinks I'll do. And that was huge, and that meant a lot. It's those really kind of like small things that kind of help carry you or just give you that push.
Yeah. My condolences, Alice, also. And I think that's so amazing that you had someone who saw saw your potential before you did.
Mm-hmm.
Sent you an email to say, hey, well done, and was basically championing you the whole way through.
Yeah.
I think that is something that is so crucial on anybody's journey, but if we're talking about therapy as a whole, the therapist's journey from the training to the actual work, it's always good to have someone in our corners just, looking at us and being like, okay, yes, you have the potential, keep going, having that cheerleader, so to speak. So that's amazing that you actually had that person in your life to say, hey, I see you. I think that's so amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I guess when you're training, it's so vulnerable, so exposing.
Yeah.
You learn so much about yourself. You give so much of yourself. Um, it can feel, yeah, just it's quite a brutal process. I don't know. For me, it was. So to go through all of that, and then to have someone being like, "You've got this. Keep going. You're going to be amazing." It just means so much. And I always think back to that email, and what it meant to me and what it meant to me to be able to connect with my tutor. Um, so yeah, I feel really lucky that I did have that experience. It wasn't all negative. There was a lot of positives to my training as well.
Yeah. What made it brutal, Alice? Can you, or are you able to unpack that for us even more? Like, what made it brutal for you?
I guess I didn't realize that in the training it's very like intrapersonal, very introspective. You really dig up what's going on for you. You dig up your subconscious bias, your microaggressions, you dig up your thought processes, all of that comes to the surface. You really have to challenge yourself and be open to being challenged as well and accepting of that. I learned so much about myself. You have to go through your own therapy, you see even your supervision, because that's about your clients, but it's also about how you relate to your clients, what comes up for you in the therapy session. There's so much reflection and so much space for, I guess, digging deeper and becoming more self-aware. I kind of felt like somebody was opening me up and being like, "Oh, what's that over there? What does that mean? What does that feel like?" It's really vulnerable, really exposing, but really enriching. I feel like I came out of it different. It's like being reborn. That sounds really dramatic, but that's how it felt.
No, that doesn't sound dramatic at all. I mean, when you think about the process of being reborn, it's a whole new clean slate, right? Or
Mm.
a new being, a new creature, as they say. Something that's never stood before us is completely new. So I would definitely agree in terms of the reborn process in our training. There was something that you said when you spoke about accepting and allowing yourself to be challenged.
Mm.
Talk to me on before your training, how much or how self-aware were you? And now that you're a therapist, that same kind of unraveling and challenging that you received, how do you feel about giving it to your clients?
Oh, interesting question. I'd definitely say I think I had quite a good self-awareness. I've always been quite a reflective person. I love journaling, I love writing, I love looking back on my journals. So that's always helped me try and understand myself more or kind of reflect on my life. But I guess the training does that for you in a whole new way. And actually, I found myself really like seeking that challenge, especially from a supervisor. She was very good at that. She's same supervisor now, she's still like that. Because it allowed me to like really figure out who I was. I mean, I'm still doing that, it's an ongoing process, but I think it taught me that it's okay to uncover that stuff, even that stuff that might feel shameful, might feel difficult, or feels taboo. Like that's all okay. It's okay for that to come into the light. And because I've been through my own process of doing that, I feel like I am able to offer that to my clients. It can sometimes feel difficult, and I think I have to try and make sure that it's done in the right way, in the right time. If I've got a new client, I might not challenge them straight away because that might not feel right. So I really have to be in tune with where my client is at. But I feel because that was taught to me in a safe way, I'm able to offer that in a safe way. And is knowing that those challenges, they always come from a place of care, a place
Yeah.
of support. It's not critical, you know? If anything, I'd see it as like empowering. And I always say to my clients, especially when I meet them for the first time and I do like an introductory session, I'll talk about the ways that I work and I always say, I'm here to reflect, help you process, and I gently challenge. And that's how I see it.
Alice, I love that. I love when you said, because the way that it was done with you was done in a safe space. So you've now cultivated that same structure when it comes to doing that with your clients, that the environment is safe and is cultivated in a way where you can challenge your clients and your clients are actually accepting and actually want to be challenged because they want to grow. So I really, really love what you said there. So Alice, I know you work with young people and children. What is it like working with what is it like working with young people and children?
Um, it is. It can be really challenging in different ways. Um, um, but also really rewarding. So yeah, I would say it has its own challenges, in terms of um we're working with children kind of where they're at. If you work with adults, there's a lot of kind of reflection work because we might be working with adults about their childhood, Whereas when we're working with the young people or children, we're usually working with them in the present moment. Sometimes also childhood past stuff, but a lot of the time it is quite present. That can be really good in some senses because I kind of see it like my job is to help the child so that by the time they get to adulthood, they don't have to come to therapy to work through the childhood because they had therapy already. I kind of see it as like we get to help them where they're at, and I find that really rewarding and really powerful. But it can also be really challenging because I find that, um, you're working with a child or young person, but they don't have that much autonomy over their own life, over the choices, the decisions are made by the parents, and especially if they're coming to me about issues about the parents or the teachers at school or these systems that they don't have control over. And so it can feel like actually family therapy would be really good so that I can also speak to the parents about how to communicate with the children and helping strengthen those relationships. So that can feel challenging because it can, I think therapy is all about autonomy and empowerment and helping people um kind of make decisions that are best for them, but that can be really difficult to do when a child is, decisions have to come from adults.
Yeah.
And sometimes, that makes me feel really frustrated and I want to, advocate for that child. And sometimes we can do that. But obviously, there's boundaries and there's limits. So there's only so much we can do with that. I guess as well, what I would say is working with children, people can feel really heavy. It can feel really heavy. And, especially they're going through a lot emotionally and sometimes they don't always have the words to express themselves or they don't know what their emotions are sometimes or therapy can feel really scary anyway for an adult, never mind for a child. It can feel really intimidating. So it sometimes can feel like I'm doing a lot of the work for them because they might not be ready, or their readiness looks different. So that can feel difficult, but at the same time, um, I guess I've learned different interventions to help with that. So I'm really into creative therapy and that works so wonderfully with children and young people. It could be movement, it could be making sounds, it could be music, walking, talking, it could be painting, whatever it might be. That can often help them express themselves and takes the pressure off the talking as well. So in that way, it can feel really rewarding.
It sounds very rewarding, especially, speaking and, doing therapy with children and young people at that age as well, so that when they get to adulthood, they've already built the tools or they have their own toolbox ready for when the world becomes hard or, relationships become hard or things come into their life where able to navigate straight away. But because they've gone through therapy from a young age or, before adulthood, they've now, thanks to you and everyone else that works with children and young people, they now have something that they can look towards or look for and say, okay, this situation's come up now. Let me go into my toolbox that I've created over how many years now and see how I can use these tools to help me in this situation now. So I think it's so powerful working with children and young people because you're giving them seeds to plant and what they decide to do with those seeds and those seeds being able to help them in their later life is, I mean, so impactful. So I really do commend you on the work you're doing.
Thank you. And that's it, isn't it? Because I always say to them, it's about us helping kind of build their own inner therapist.
Yeah.
You want them to be able to, like you said, feel empowered or have those resources to draw upon when they're struggling. And as well, it's about modeling that healthy relationship, that healthy connection. Some of the young people I work with, they don't have that. They don't have other adults. They've not seen what healthy communication looks like. They don't not seen what boundaries look like. And the beauty of being a therapist is that you get to model that. You get to be their safe person and show them what that looks like and how they can look for that in other people in their life. You know, that feels really important. Um, yeah, just to be that safe person for them and know that they were teach them. They deserve that. They deserve that safety.
They definitely deserve that safety. And I thank you for saying that in terms of the deserving of safety. And, you know, we all deserve safety in our lives. It's crucial. It's very crucial.
Sorry, without safety, like, how do we grow?
Right. How do we grow if we don't have, you know, an environment or people or things that keep us safe, whether it be mentally, whether it be emotionally, whether it be physically? I mean, if we're always in harm or in places of harm or around harm, we're going to continually be in a place of, okay, how do I survive? So survival mode in a sense, which again, it has its place, but we want to have places of safety and people of safety to nurture us and for us to grow. And like you said, to take the next step in our lives.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Alice, talk to me on the creative therapy approach that you have.
Yeah, so my journey with the creative therapy has been really interesting because when I qualified as a therapist and moved into working with young people, I quickly realized that talking therapy wasn't always enough. It didn't always reach those places. Words felt really limiting, and that I needed to figure out another way that the young people felt safe to communicate. So I went on a bunch of different courses and I fell in love with it, even for myself, because the creative workshops, they were all very experiential. So I got to really immerse myself in them. And I guess I was amazed at what had come up for me and what I'd learned and what was there that I hadn't realized. And actually, um, the creativity gave me another language
Mm,
to kind of explore, what things I was struggling with. Um, and so I actually couldn't wait to bring it back to my own people. And I was buying all these little things, I had my little box of paints and miniatures and just anything I could get my hands on, basically.
yeah.
Um, and at first it felt kind of scary, to offer certain things, you know, because I guess talking is like the conventional way of therapy, and that's like, yeah, that's just the dumb way of things. But actually, I wanted to offer something else, and it felt, yeah, at first it's scary, but then I was like, you know what, just be bold. If they say no, they say no. And they say, yeah, it's great. And a lot of the young people, they jumped at the chance and actually realized that that felt like their natural language. So, like I said, I do all sorts of different things. But one that I've really connected to over the last year is sound play therapy. It's so powerful. I guess the way that I can describe it, I know there's it's different for different people, but the way that I learned it, you can use most things for the sound tray. So, like symbols, miniatures, it might be toys, objects you can use. And I guess it's kind of like metaphor. So, you might choose miniatures or symbols that resonate with you. Or sometimes you don't even know why you're drawn to an object, but the idea is that you just go with that felt sense. So it's less cognitive and it's more feeling, intuition. You might just pick things up, and I'll say to my client, when you're ready, you can, start your sand tray, and they might just put objects anywhere. And then we'll talk about what's come up in the sand tray. I might ask them, how do you feel about what's in here? Is there any sound in your sand tray? Is there anything that you like? Just kind of offering prompts. And what comes up can be really powerful because they might, I guess, project a feeling onto a symbol, or it could be a person, it could be an experience. And it's just another way to really connect with what's going on inside. But I guess less pressure on with words, and less pressure to know because it's more felt sense rather than cognitive.
Yeah.
You don't have to know in advance. It can just come up naturally. And it's just the idea that the sand tray it's them, So I wouldn't I wouldn't just reach into the sand tray without their permission. I wouldn't even touch the sand tray because it's an expression of them. It's a manifestation of them.
Yeah.
And just how you treat your clients with that care and have those boundaries is the same way we do with the sand tray. So yeah, I've just found it a really powerful process for myself, but also, for my clients as well.
Alice, you said two things that stood out to me. You said the creative therapy approach gave you a new language to speak
Mm.
from. Speak more on that. And then the second part of this question is, can you explain to the listeners exactly what sandbox or sandplay therapy is?
Can you remind me of the first question? Sorry.
No. So the first question was, you mentioned that creative therapy created a new language for you to speak from. Can you speak
Mm.
more on that for us, please?
Yeah. Um, it felt like a natural expression. It felt almost like childlike. As children, one of the first things we're introduced to is play. It's imagination, it's expression. And I guess as we grow into adulthood, those things are kind of neglected or they're not seen as adult or they're discouraged. But with this sand play, we go back to that. We go back to that imagination expression, the playfulness that's encouraged, connecting with objects and toys and colours. Um, so I feel like almost we're, yeah, connecting with our inner child. And we all have one, It's sometimes just about accessing or letting them out. And in some play, I feel like that inner child is really encouraged to be there. And so then that's why I say it's like a language. It feels like a natural language. It feels like I always knew that language, but I forgot about it as an adult.
Yeah.
And I'd say, people might think this intervention only works with children. It doesn't. I do this with adults, and adults love this, because it gives them permission to just be and come out of the cognitive, which I think as adults we're in most of the time. So it feels like an easy language or easier language, an accessible language. Um, and then in terms of what is Santre?
Yeah. What is Sancho? If someone's
So,
listening and saying, "Oh, what is this Sancho therapy? What does it do? How do I do it? What does it
mm,
entail? What would you say?"
um, I guess Santre therapy is is just another way of exploring what's happening for you, but with the use of objects. So the Santre is you, is the person, and you're using objects and toys to help maybe express what's going on for you. So kind of see it as like metaphor.
Yeah.
Um, and it's similar in terms of the therapist might still ask questions or offer reflections about the sand tray, but actually it's not really the sand tray. It's you, it's the client. I think sand tray is really good for people who might struggle to speak or want to be a bit more playful or want to tap into their creativity.
Mm.
Um, does that answer the question?
Yeah. I mean, is that is does that is that for you? Are you happy with your answer?
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, you've given us the details, so
Mm,
that's perfectly fine for me.
okay.
Wellbeing workshops through creativity. Talk to me on that.
Yes. So after I'd experienced, all this creativity and just the change it made in my life, me and my two work colleagues, we decided that we wanted to offer something similar to our colleagues at work. So we basically came together and, came up with different activities and we offered it at work. So it's called Creative Insights, a wellbeing workshop for staff. We didn't want it to be a training, like a training of how to do creative therapy. We wanted participants to experience it for themselves. Especially because we work so hard with young people every day, and it can be really draining and impacting. And we really felt it was important for the therapist to have that outlet and that expression. So the day split into there's like drawing exercises, mostly with the non-dominant hand, which for anyone who doesn't know, it's basically about again, connecting with that emotion and feeling. It's not about drawing or making art. It's about just experimenting with the pen, basically. So you would use your non-dominant hand, so the hand that you don't write with, because that's less linked to like the cognitive. It's just kind of what comes up. It can feel really childlike. It's just kind of going with the process rather than the outcome. So there's activities based off that, kind of just see what comes up. We do movement, um, which is more like expressive dance or kind of interpretive dance, or just moving about the room. There's something really important about movement, because sometimes when you're just still,
Yeah.
it can make things feel stagnant, feel stuck. Movement can offer clarity, and that feels really important. So that we offer that as well. So there's lots of different exercises basically. And the idea is that you just get to connect, you get to be, you get to see what comes up. And one of the main ways we sell it is like, just come and play with us for a few hours. Like come and be, come and come and just be free. And we've had, really good feedback. People have really enjoyed it. It's really helped them connect with themselves and with others. It's kind of offered some respite from offering therapy. And our idea is that we are going to be taking it to the public. In terms of, at the moment, what we're thinking is still therapists, teachers, social workers. But yeah, it's something that we are going to hopefully offer out this year as well, and see how that goes.
I look forward to it, Alice. I look forward to these workshops, and definitely share with us when the date and stuff when it's set out, and we can put that on our Instagram page for people to see.
Yes, definitely.
Alice, for someone who is beginning their journey as a therapist, probably about to do their degree, their diploma, their course, or thinking about applying, what advice would you give them?
Mm, Well, I'd definitely say if it feels right for them to do it, to, I guess, know that it is going to be really hard work, and you will be reborn most likely. Like, it will be an emotional journey, but it's so rewarding, and so powerful. And I feel like I can't speak for professions that I don't know, but in terms of training, I think training as a therapist or counselor is so unique in what it gives you and what you learn about yourself.
Yeah.
So just be prepared to take that journey, and prepare to kind of be vulnerable and open, and just seeing what comes from it. Um, yeah, I feel like there's not many opportunities in life where we get to learn all this stuff about ourselves, um, and still learn, in terms of learn about ourselves, but also learn how to be a therapist for other people. It feels like it's for us, but it's for them, but it's also for us. And it feels rare to me that that happens in a profession. So yeah, just to be aware of that really, and as well where you can just try to reach out and connect to find communities that you can be a part of. Peer supervision, or there's so many different kind of like memberships that you can be a part of. And I'd say, try and find your people, try and connect. And it's really important to take time looking for the right supervisor and the right therapist. That's huge. Like, don't rush it. It's really important you find someone who's aligned with you, because they're going to help you on your journey. They're going to be a big part of your journey. So just take time to really find someone who's right for you. And it's okay if it takes you a while. That's really important.
Alice, thank you so much for today. Before you go, I want to throw some rapid fun questions at you so the listeners can get to know you better. Is that okay?
Yes.
Alice, do you have a favorite quote?
Oh, favorite quote. Feel the fear and do it anyway.
Why that quote?
It's okay to feel scared. but it's not worth letting the fear put you off something. If you really want to do it, that's what your authentic self really wants to do, the fear is just not worth it.
Alice, if you could work remotely in any part of the world, where would it be and why?
You know what, I'm gonna say Spain, which might sound a bit like, "Well, anyway, you go to Spain," but I used to live in Spain. I was like 21 and I absolutely loved it and I fell in love with the country and the language and it just felt like me. And I kind of want to reconnect to my younger self as well.
Yeah.
And I kind of still dream of going back to Spain and working there. So that's what, yeah, that's what I pick.
Do you have a favorite book or movie?
Mm. I love Shawshank Redemption. Have you seen it?
Yeah, with Morgan Freeman, right?
Yeah. Oh, it's one of my favorite films.
Why? Tell us.
I think I'm really drawn to anything that will elicit really strong emotion in me. Um, I think because it's so sad and there's this huge case of injustice that he's in prison, like wrongfully imprisoned. But then in prison, he makes this really strong connection with the guy who's played by Morgan Freeman. This really powerful friendship, and he helps him. It's called Red. Yeah, Red helps him out, and they become like brothers. And then, like, what we don't realize is all this time he's, building this hole and he escapes. He's in this, really dark place where I imagine he thinks his life has come to an end. He finds this friend that becomes a brother, and then he actually gets to escape. And then I think like the ending shot is of him and Red and they're walking along the beach and they're by the ocean and this idea that they've got this whole life still ahead of them. This idea of like this like idea of like forgiveness and I guess again this theme of like being reborn and this thing like he would have thought was impossible is possible. I feel like that just makes me I was just like, "Whoa, like that's incredible," like all things are possible. It gave me a real sense of hope, that film. That's it. It's like the hope. So that yeah. And at the time, especially because when I was young, I loved that film. I had quite a difficult childhood, and that film always made me feel hope that even in the darkest times, like I could be free or good things could happen. Oh God, I read so much as well. I'm trying to think what my favorite is. Probably it's a book called Before I Die by Jenny Downham. Again, a book from my childhood about a girl that's dying of cancer, but she has these things on a list for the things she wants to do before she dies.
Yeah.
I like that book because there's like existential themes of death and life, again, hope, and just the way that grief and bereavement and end of life are spoken about. Yeah, I just feel really kind of raw and powerful and I think that book taught me a lot about life and death. One that's like death will come to us all, but that doesn't have to be scary. It kind of normalized it for me, which I thought was really important at the time.
Wow. It's powerful. It's a powerful book, powerful film.
Mm,
My last question for you, Alice. Do you have a favorite cuisine?
Caribbean, 100%. Don't have to think about it.
Why Caribbean? Obviously, I'm Caribbean too, but I'd love to hear your answer.
Yeah. Well, my dad's Jamaican, and he was a chef. So
Right.
growing up, always had really good food. And I think food is just a big part of my culture. I've got memories of my dad, cooking his Dutch part. He used to make something called Chicken Alice. He named it after me. So, it was just always a big part of my life. And sometimes, like, he'd make chicken rice and peas, and then um, my mum would like pack it, and we take it to the park and have it, as a picnic. And I just remember, just it just is linked to lots of happy memories for me. Um, so yeah. Oh yeah, I love it.
Alice, I love that. I love that. You mentioned the word reborn a couple times in our pod today. And I wanted to just unpack that a bit further before you go, in terms of what does that mean for you, in terms of being reborn, and just in general, what does that word mean to you? Because you've mentioned it a couple of times and it sounds as if that's something that it means a lot to you. So I just wanted to hear more on that, if you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, this idea of a new, and I guess it's still me, not this idea of like forgetting me, it's still me, but I'm reborn in the sense of evolved, grown, changed. Maybe the old things stripped away, the
Yeah.
things that, you know, got me to where I am now, but no longer need those things. It's kind of like shedding skin. Um, and I think there's something really like powerful about that idea of all of us, in life, we can continue to grow and be reborn and evolve, and that there's no limit to that. It just continues if we allow it.
Yeah.
Um, and this, I think I said before, like I'm still figuring out me as a counselor, as a person. I think that will continue until I die. That will just always be there. But I think I love that idea that we're just forever changing. Something about us. I don't know if chances is the right word, or opportunities. We deserve that as people, and we get that, we experience that, and I think that feels like really forgiving. Does that make I don't know if that makes sense.
No, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Allowing yourself to be something new without forgetting who you are at the core and the
Yeah.
presenter.
Yeah.
And I think that's powerful. Alice, people have heard you today and they want to get in touch, they want to reach out. What would be the best way for people to contact you?
So I am on the BACP website if people do want therapy. So I think if you can share a link, that would be great. So I'll be on there. And then also you can email me at alicegracecounselling@gmail.com if people are interested. And maybe for those that just want to follow, not necessarily, want therapy, you can also follow me on Instagram at Alice_Spencer.
Amazing. Alice, thank you so much for coming into the pod today. I just pray for continual success and growth in everything that you do. And I look forward to having you on the podcast again.
Thank you so much.
No problem. Ladies and gentlemen, I have been your host, Calvin Anderson. We've had the amazing Alice Spencer with us today. Have a good night. Take care. Speak soon. God bless.